Okay, hello and welcome to Chapter 6, Section 2, as well as Section 3. And today we're looking at market equilibrium. Equilibrium, whenever we talk about the concept of equilibrium, that's kind of like the resting place when something has kind of swung back and forth, and it's sort of the sweet spot. And when we're looking at opposing forces, in this case, it's supply and demand when they balance each other. And so there's two spots when we hit equilibrium. There's an equilibrium price and there's equilibrium quantity, and the place right where those two curves intersect, where they equal each other, is the price point. Where that is the equilibrium price. The quantity at that place where those two curves intersect is the equilibrium quantity. When more of a product is available or supplied, when there's excess, we call that a surplus. And when there is not enough of a product, when the company has run out and people still want to buy, we call that a shortage. Okay, so those are just some vocab terms just for us. All right. Okay, so here we go. So here we have the supply curve, and here we have the demand curve, and they're intersecting. And where they intersect is the equilibrium point. So I'm highlighting the equilibrium point real big there. Okay. And now, the important thing to understand is, if you just step back and think about it, if companies have prices set too high, if the asking price is too high, then people won't purchase the product, and so you'll have product left over. So the amount of surplus, there's going to be a certain amount demanded and a certain amount available, and we're going to have leftover. The leftover, or the surplus, is that amount, that distance between the two. And so we can measure the distance, sort of like 1.5 and 4.5. That's the distance between these two. So that's where we get that surplus, 2 million discs. Again, remember, this is in millions of discs per week. Okay. Now, the opposite is also true. If the company sets the price too low, the company's going to offer more, or company's going to offer less of a product, and the people are going to demand more, and this is the amount of the shortage. So the wider the distance, the bigger the shortage or the surplus. Okay, and we can see the same thing when we go a little closer. Let's just get some definitions down here. Oops. All right, so if we change the price, okay, again, the thing to understand that is that when there is a surplus, the only way to get rid of that surplus is to drop the price, and then that will sell the products. And so, same thing, if we run out of a product, then what we need to do is move the price up, and that will sell the product. Okay, so the equilibrium price is the sweet spot. It's not the selling price that will always guarantee a profit. That's the important thing to understand. If the company can't make a profit at the equilibrium price, then there's probably going to be an issue where the company's going to have to change something about the product. Okay, so last two chapters we talked about the fact that these curves can move backwards and forwards. So we're looking at, so here we have a demand curve, downward demand. This is D1 and this is D2 to show the difference here. All right, and notice the curve is moving to the right, so that's an increase in demand. Okay, so the idea is the price, okay, when that happens, prices rise and quantity supply increases as a result. Okay, and again, we have a new equilibrium point. Okay, so the equilibrium price is going to rise at that point. And this is when demand changes, we're going to have a price increase, because all of a sudden, if we keep the old price and demand changes, then with the new curve, we have a shortage. Okay, so if something becomes popular all of a sudden, we need to raise the price. We're going to run out. We're going to lose out on money. That's money you could have made there, and that's one of those things that happens. All right, so just as the demand curve can move, the supply curve can also move. So here we're looking at an increase in supply, because here's supply, that's the first curve, and here's the second curve. Remember, supply to the sky goes up, right? Curves up. So we notice this curve is shifting to the right, so that's an increase in supply. And so what we're seeing is, and again, just look at the curves and you'll see what's happening. So we can see the price is the equilibrium point, which used to be here, is now lower. So we're going to have to lower the price to deal with the situation, or else we're going to have this surplus. This space right here would be the surplus. All right. Again, if supply increases and you don't lower the price, you're going to have leftover. It's like you just told the company, okay, let's just make twice as many. Nothing else changes. Let's just make twice as many. Well, we're going to have a lot of leftovers. And so the only way we get rid of those leftovers is by dropping the price. Well, life is actually very complicated, and so it is possible for both supply and demand curves to move. And so the issue is how much things move and which way the curves move. Honestly, we just need to understand that wherever the two curves are now intersecting, wherever that is, whichever, if the curves move to the left or another curve moves to the right, just look for where the new curves intersect, and that is your equilibrium. Okay, so here we see an increase in both supply and demand. Okay, not really sure what's going to happen to the price, but in this case, it hasn't changed. It's exact same. Very rarely does that happen, but that can happen. The companies, they predicted that there was going to be more sales, so they increased more. Okay, and at the same time, something changed. Customers decided they want that product. So it was the perfect scenario where there was no shock to the system. Companies reacted properly and had the right amount of product available. There's an increase in the products produced when you had a run on the product. Suddenly, it just got more popular. Lo and behold, in this particular situation, it has no change in price. But if we don't know, again, this is one of those things. If you don't have a graph right in front of you, you can't tell. So that's why we say an uncertain effect. If we're not really sure, if I just say the two curves move, we don't really know. And again, all depends which way it goes. All right, so you got to pay attention to that. Okay, so here we have an increase in supply and a decrease in demand. And so that's going to make a situation where you have a lot of leftover products. You're going to have to drop that price dramatically. Okay, notice we're going from $2.50 all the way down to $1 just to get it back to the new sweet spot. Here's the old sweet spot. Here's the new sweet spot. There's the old sweet spot. After the change, and this is one of those situations where company thought this product was going to be really hot. They made lots of it. Something encouraged the company to produce more and have more available for sale. And then something other than price changed people's behavior towards this product, and they didn't want it as much. So all of a sudden we have leftovers, and this happens all the time when they think there's going to be something that's really hot, and it just turns out to not be very popular. And that is the end of chapter 6.